Let's do it.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar, where we tell you a little bit more about the MSc in One Health and Infectious Diseases. So I will share a presentation with you, and I will tell you as much as I can. I may also show you the virtual online learning site if we have time, and then we can also answer some questions. So let's get started. Now I'm going to pop this on. I just would like to check with the audience if you can see my full screen or my presenter notes. I'd like you to see the full screen.
You can see the full screen, yes.
Okay, so here we go. What you can see here is a beautiful picture of the Glasgow University main building and the University Tower. Obviously, as virtual students, you will have to do a virtual tour, but I'll give you a little bit of flavor. So on many of the slides that you'll see today, there's a little bit of a flavor of what Glasgow looks like and what the University of Glasgow looks like. So just to give you a little bit of an idea. So during these sessions, we'll talk to you a little bit about the University of Glasgow and also One Health research that is being undertaken here. And then I'll tell you more about the programme and the online learning environment. And I will finish up with giving you some key information about entry requirements, study duration and fees. So I believe all our attendees are on mute. So if you do have any questions, you can pop these in the chat, I believe, and we can then answer them in the Q&A session. So, okay. So let me just start with two key people. So on the top with a yellow jumper, you can see myself. My name is Christina Naula. I am a parasitologist, and all of my work, or a lot of my work, focuses on tropical medicine. So I am the program lead for the MSc in One Health and Infectious Diseases, and I also lead a diploma in tropical medicine and hygiene. And I kind of come from a research background. I have published a lot of work on leishmaniasis and trypanosomiasis, both infections that you would be covering in our program. I'm also a podcast host, so if you like parasites, like parasitic worms and other creatures, creepy crawlies, you can look that up. So that's quite fun. Then we have here Dr. Rachel Finlay-Robinson. She's the Deputy Programme Lead. So Rachel comes from a different background, also research. So her background is in animal behaviour, and she has a particular interest in the role of climate change and in influencing movement, distribution and behaviour of animals. So apart from running courses on the MSc in One Health and Infectious Diseases, she also teaches on the Animal Welfare Science MSc and the Applied Conservation MSc. So, and you'll get to meet both of us during the course or during the course of the program. We both lead courses, some of them we lead together. So definitely two people to keep in mind. There are a lot of other really important people that help us with the course, but I think now is not a time to introduce them all. You'll get to meet them if you decide to join us, and you'll meet a few new people with every course that you do. So no doubt you've already been looking up the University of Glasgow and, you know, what makes this university a good place to study. And I just popped on some very few key facts here. So it's a very old university. It's recently had its 500th and 600th. Oh, my math is going off today. It's been established a long time ago in 1451. And it is always ranked really high. So, you know, if you're looking for a high quality education, Glasgow University is definitely a place to consider. We're also, and that might be of particular interest for anyone interested in One Health, ranked 13th in the world QS World Sustainability Rankings. So, you know, a sustainable university. And actually, I got that number right. I think it's actually 11th now. 13th was 2 years ago, so we're 11th, so we're even better. And overall, the university is very research intensive. It's one of the Russell groups. And, if you want to find out a little bit more what that means, you can look it up. And there's been quite a lot of Nobel laureates. 8 are connected to this university. For example, Sir James Black. So he was the winner of a Nobel Prize in Medicine. And who else would I like to pick up? David Macmillan, more recently, he won a Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So, an illustrious kind of people we are here. But coming from a more student-centered point of view, I also would like to mention that actually our teaching staff are very dedicated and passionate, and we do offer a flexible and also quite innovative learning environment. And I'm not just saying that because I am biased. I have actually experienced learning environments at different universities, and I can honestly say that actually we're doing a pretty good job. So you'd be joining more than 40,000 other students from over 150 countries. And I think also having a degree from the University of Glasgow is probably a quite good starting point for finding future employment. And we'll talk a little bit about career perspectives later on as well. Something that is really particularly important to me as well is that we're also an inclusive university. So we're really dedicated and committed to having an inclusive and welcoming community for everybody. And our university of sanctuary status recognizes that we need to offer, and we have, a safe and welcoming environment. And we provide that for everybody, including refugees and asylum seekers, and also people with disabilities and of the LGBTQ community. So we are really an inclusive university. And I think that is really important to be like that. And I do very much focus on providing an accessible and inclusive learning environment on our programme. But you're here primarily to learn a little bit more about One Health. So I thought I'd just give you a wee definition. This is always really useful. So on the left, you have a more visual illustration of quite inclusive and complete understanding of what One Health is. And at the bottom here of that slide, I have actually copied the reference here where that visual definition is coming from. And I really encourage you, if you want to learn a little bit more about One Health before you commit, go and have a look at that, because it's really well written and it's open access. So you can just follow the link and or Google it and look it up. So essentially, and the One Health approach, I'm just going to move, the videos is obscuring my writing, so I'm just going to have to move you about a little bit. So, and there's many, many different definitions of One Health. So if you type into your search engine One Health approach, you will probably come, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of links that will give you different definition. So the one I have chosen is a very up-to-date definition, which has been endorsed and proposed by 4 large global organizations, the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Health Organization, the United Nations Environment Programme, and the World Health Organization for Animal Health. So they're also known as quadripartite, and we'll tell you more about that if you were to take our program. But for now, I just want to give you the definition. So One Health is a collaborative effort to optimize the health of humans, animals, plants, and the environment, recognizing their interconnectedness. It aims to sustainably balance and optimize health across these sectors by addressing shared risks and opportunities, like, for example, emerging diseases and food safety, and also climate change. And these kind of keywords that you see here, like emerging diseases, risks, sustainably, food safety, climate change, these are all threads that we pick up on our program. So we have dedicated courses for pretty much all of these keywords, actually. So some issues that we have to consider, really, if you kind of take a step back. So the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the global threat of infectious diseases. I'm sure I don't have to remind you too much on that. But, there are other pandemic threats circulating now. So we have an ongoing and very important animal pandemic. Well, two actually. One that is essentially limited to animals. That's the African swine fever pandemic. And then we have avian influenza. And, unless you live under a rock, you will have read in the news or you will have heard on social media, you will have read about bird flu and bird flu in cows. And, it's been in the news, so you'll be aware of it. And then we also have climate change that has really been altering our global environment, by introducing extreme weather events, maybe, and higher overall temperatures. Then we have antimicrobial resistance. And also, this is really compounded by our global mobility. So we can move around the world. Animals are moved around the world. So really that kind of, it just adds to these issues that I've just mentioned that could be considered threats to humankind and animals and the environment as well. So this is just a few headlines that I have copied out into this presentation yesterday. So I mentioned the avian influenza bird flu just a moment ago. So this is on the left, you can see a headline about a second type of avian influenza strain in dairy cattle. Now, a large proportion of dairy herds in the US are actually infected with the avian influenza virus, and that potentially, could lead to maybe a spillover into people, and maybe that virus could become adapted to being transmitted between people, and that could very well be the cause of a future pandemic. At the moment, the risk is not terribly high, but it's certainly not something to ignore. Then the second one on the left, or the second from the left, is it says the pigs have disappeared, and that's what I alluded to earlier, that big global African swine fever pandemic that really decimates swine herds, domestic in particular, food production chains. For example, in China, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a huge economic impact of millions of pigs having to be culled. And it has also now spread into wild swine population. You can see here a very cute bearded pig from Borneo. Then also every year, essentially, it seems to be now the hottest year on record. So that's just highlighting climate change. And then also on the right, we have the antibiotic emergency, which could claim 40 million lives in the next 25 years. And that is really just to illustrate how challenging it might become to treat human infections such as strep A throat, for example, which no doubt all of you will have had. That may not necessarily be easy to treat later on. Tuberculosis, for example, highly resistant strains circulating the world. So this is going to be a very important theme. And it actually also is a really important theme on our program. So I just want to talk to you now a little bit more about the program and also the research at the University of Glasgow that this program has been developed from and built up upon. So actually, there's a lot of One Health research going on at the University of Glasgow. I'm going to show you 2 examples in a couple of minutes. So, but you could just Google, or maybe you shouldn't say Google, I should just say you could do an internet search, and you could type in your search query One Health and University of Glasgow, and you will immediately come up with quite a lot of really fascinating research projects. I'm going to actually share a link with you as well. And, there's a lot of different research threats at the university, for example, on prevention and control of infectious diseases. But there's also an important aspect of cultural and societal factors that also plays into the research. There's a thread of One Health economics. and then also policy making. So several of my colleagues are involved in policy making themselves, and I think that's a really aspect of One Health as well. And then another reason why you should choose that program is very flexible. So you don't need to relocate or pause your career. You can do it from the comfort of your sofa or your shed in the back garden, or from the bus while you're commuting. And here another beautiful picture of our university tower. So I kind of repeating myself here a little bit, but I think I really want to emphasize that the University of Glasgow is really an international leader in One Health research. And our university or research groups from the university really work across the global south, and with a very particular focus on sub-Saharan Africa, for example, Tanzania and Malawi. But we also have really big research projects ongoing under the umbrella of One Health in Scotland and the rest of the UK. And I think I can honestly state that and I'm saying I am teaching, I'm not actively researching, but our is kind of the royal we, the University of Glasgow. The collaborations have made a really big impact on national and global health, but also veterinary health agendas. So I think that is really important to point out. And here is the view from one of my favorite hiking hills. This is Conic Hill. What you can see is Loch Lomond with its many islands that are worthwhile exploring. And you should definitely, even if you were to be an online student, you'd maybe think about a holiday and come and visit and explore. So here are two examples. For example, there is a project underway that looks at how climate change could increase the risk of mosquito-borne diseases in Scotland, and thereby maybe enhancing our preparedness. And this is what you can see on the picture in the middle, where you can see a mosquito hanging upside down on a green leaf. So this is actually a project that also involves the public. So this is something that you could participate if you happen to be in Scotland or somewhere else in the UK, by reporting mosquito sightings, because a big part of that is actually collecting data on mosquito populations. So that is a really, really important project. And then another example that I would like to give you is that our efforts to work towards elimination of human rabies. And really, I think several Glasgow research groups have really done a lot to contribute to the elimination of that devastating fatal infection. So two really good examples. And I've given you a link here that you should be able to click on, and then you can read a little bit more about. This is only two of many, many really interesting research projects. Okay, so kind of focusing a little bit on the program now. So obviously we teach you what you'd expect from any kind of academic adventure. So we have core skills, such as, learning how to evaluate scientific literature, or maybe also communicating your literature, communicating your scientific learning to a wider audience. So, that is a core skill really that we embed. And then obviously you'll get a lot of knowledge acquiring through your journey, but we also help you develop really useful competencies. For example, give a presentation like I'm doing here now, or, talk to your family or friends about science and explain science to them. That's really important. But also just to kind of be able to evaluate and decide whether maybe a news headline that you read is a proper piece of information, or whether maybe it's slightly tainted by misinformation. And I think that is a really important key skill to have. And then obviously there will be a lot of specialized subjects, and I'll show you a course list in a moment so that you can see what kind of topics we teach. So we are very student centered, and I think I am not exaggerating when I'm saying this is really one of my key drives on this program, is really to ensure that we focus on you. So it's just not just for us to go out and, you know, deliver a lecture, but we actually work with you and we make your wishes and your kind of needs our priority when we develop our teaching. So yeah. I mentioned the program structure, the specialized subjects. So what you can see here is actually a breakdown of all the courses that are currently offered through One Health. So at the top in blue, that is your first year, and that is essentially a core. So there is no option, it's compulsory or mandatory for everybody. So we start off the program with exploring what One Health is and what it means to different people. We kind of investigate, you know, one of the kind of key aspects of One Health is that we collaborate, it's interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, multi-sectoral. So we explore all these concepts there as well. I think that is really a good foundation to set you off. And then our next course, following on from that, then looks at policy making. You know, what is a policy? Who makes it? And based on what? So that will be the second course. And then we kind of move on to more kind of disease-focused courses. So we have two courses that are closely linked. The first focuses on zoonotic diseases, which are infections that are shared between animals and people. So avian influenza, for example, I've mentioned that. There's so many zoonotic diseases, and I can't think of a single one just now, but I'll maybe come back with one. And then the other topic that we covered following from that is emerging infectious diseases, which is really, you know, in our globally connected world, in a world where we can encroach on pristine habitats, you know, we come into contact more and more with maybe pathogens that we previously might not have seen. Or another aspect of emerging infections is, for example, increasing vaccine hesitancy that leads to the re-emergence of infections, for example, measles. And if you just were to look at any newspaper, you'd know that there's, for example, a big measles outbreak in the United States. Although we should maybe not forget that actually last year there were tens of thousands of measles cases in Europe as well. And, you know, maybe we should focus on Europe, on ourselves as well, not just pointing fingers at other countries. And then finally in that year, we kind of bring things a bit together. So we kind of cover climate change and One Health, and we cover various aspects in that course. For example, how climate change affects human and animal health, just kind of in terms of, you know, the effects of temperature or flooding, you know, people displacement. But we also look how climate change can affect the transmission of infectious diseases, etc. And there's some case studies in there as well. So that's year one, and I think that sets you up really to be successful in year two. I mentioned at the beginning antimicrobial resistance. So this is a big course, it's a really big theme in One Health. So you will be learning all about antimicrobial resistance, and not just relating to bacterial infections, but also viral and parasitic infections. And this is a core course, and all the other courses in year two are essentially optional. And really that depends a bit on what you would like to do. So for example, we have a double pack of economics. If you are economically minded and you would like to learn more about the financial foundations of embracing a One Health approach in your research, that would be a good option. You know, things have to be paid for. Funds have to be allocated. So we have these two options. And then we have a course, for example, that, you know, obviously, if you enrolling for a master's program, you'll be thinking about doing your own research project or your dissertation project. So, and some of you will be professionals who have maybe been working for quite some time, and you may be less familiar with planning and developing a dissertation, for example, or you may have come from a degree background that is more vocational, so you may not have done a dissertation during your degree, so we have a course that would help you with that if you wanted to. There's also a course for those who are more quantitatively minded on proper hardcore epidemiology and statistics. We're currently developing a food security option that you could take in combination with one of the One Health economics options, because food insecurity in our changing world is really, really relevant. You can imagine the warming climate or extreme weather has a huge impact on food production. And then we have a course with a not very imaginative name, Epidemiology, Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases. And what it says on the package is exactly what you get in the tin. So we'll talk about various aspects of how we could actually prevent outbreaks or prevent an outbreak getting out of hand. That's one of my favorite courses. And then our final course in that year is human wildlife conflict, because more and more we actually come into contact with wildlife by encroaching into, for example, the rainforest, but also in the Arctic. No doubt will have seen lonely polar bears floating into inhabited areas in the Arctic area. So a really important topic to cover as well. And then our final year is the dissertation, and that will be really bespoke to your interests. So whatever your interests are and you would like to research, you can do that. We can make it happen. Within reason, I should say. But we've had so many interesting dissertation projects over the year. For example, one of our students looked at avian influenza in the understanding of kind of biosecurity measures in the context of avian influenza in backyard poultry owners in Canada. Another one of our students kind of explored the meaning of wildlife. What is wildlife? How do we define it? Then we had students that looked at snake bite envenomation in animal populations in Eswatini, where they lived. So lots and lots of different things. I'm currently supervising a dissertation student who is looking at the impacts of congenital transmission of a parasitic infection called Chagas disease. So whatever you want to do, we can probably make possible. There may be some topics that might be more difficult, but we'll try our best. Okay, so let's maybe move on to the small print. So the entry requirements, you need to have a 2-1 honours degree or equivalent in a relevant subject from a recognised institution. Now, the relevant subjects on our decision-making trees in the admissions team are actually quite broad. So that could be biomedicine, that could be veterinary medicine, that could be economics, that could be, there's a lot of things. So, if you're not sure, ask somebody, click the button on the webpage and ask, because, it might be perfectly suitable, even if you think traditionally you might not. So do ask. And the other thing I would like to highlight is that, if you don't have a 2-1 honours, but you have a lot of professional experience, then that is also something that we consider. So don't think, I didn't do so well in my degree, I'm just not going to even bother applying. Do get in touch, because we do consider professional experience, because I think it's as important as having a good degree, possibly even more important. Obviously, we have to make a decision based on something. So, a degree cutoff is a good starting point, but do ask. Then, if your first language is not English, you have to have a valid IELTS score of 6.5. You can find more about that on the next slide, but also on the webpage. And actually, there are some countries that are exempt from that. So if your country of origin is listed here, you don't have to provide your IELTS, which is quite useful. And there's some smaller print there as well that you can maybe follow up later. Now, what are you going to do after you've done your master's program? You may wonder. It's all a bit academic. So there's lots of things that you can do. So you can pursue an academic career. You can maybe do a PhD. You can work at a university as a research associate, for example. And that, that doesn't necessarily have to be labeled as One Health. You can have to think a bit outside of the box. So it could be in AMR or zoonotic diseases research. So if you're kind of academically minded, do consider a PhD. It's fun. I enjoyed doing my PhD. You could also work for international organizations, and I've just mentioned some big ones here, but they're much smaller national and international organizations that you could consider as well. For example, many of our students at the moment actually work for the Animal Health Protection Agency here in the UK. So, there may be an equivalent in your country. So, they are always looking for experts that understand the interconnectedness between people and animals and the environment, and more so. Then there's a load of non-governmental organizations that often also look for people with that ability to kind of make connections, which you will be able to, maybe already are able to, but definitely will be able to after completing our program. You could, of course, also work for biotechnology or pharmaceutical companies if you wanted to, work for scientific journals. I think this is a really rewarding avenue. And, it doesn't just need to be writing or scientific publishing. It can be editing. It can also be podcasting. Now, I've mentioned earlier, I'm a podcast co-host. I really love talking about science in the podcast format. So the kind of science communication is a really important career that you could consider. And several of our students have actually become independent One Health consultants. So they do consultancy work for various companies. So if you're kind of a bit entrepreneurial, that might be something that you would want to consider. And do ask, because we do have quite a few graduates on the program that could tell you what they have done. So please do get in touch and ask. Okay, just a few more words, really. I'm nearly at the end. So, and I'm actually going to show you the learning environment if we have time, that is. Our moderator will probably shake their head or nod their head. So I'll see how we go. Our online learning environment is built such that you will be able to learn at any time, on any device, and in any place that you are, provided that you have some internet access. Now, a lot of our material is not bandwidth hungry. So we've actually had students who joined tutorials from a campsite in Wales before. So, you just need to have a little bit of internet, and a lot of our learning materials is also accessible offline. So that is really useful. It's asynchronous, which essentially means we give you a proportion of learning materials with instructions and guidance, and you can then do that at any time of day, whenever you have time. And our material is fully accessible. So if you are visually impaired, you will be having audio material. If you are deaf, for example, you will be provided with full and accurate transcripts of anything that we do deliver. And if you have specific needs, we can always make it possible for you to learn with your needs. So we have a really efficient and good team that helps us with providing accessible formats of learning. So we use traditional lectures delivered in a not so traditional way. We use discussion boards, we use interactive video and audio. So I think there's something for every type of learner in there. The other thing is that you have a full access to the electronic resources of the University of Glasgow Library, which is absolutely vast. Even if you wanted to get a completely unrelated scientific journal article on, your granny's disease or something, or just a topic that's not related, you'll find it. Or if you wanted to look something about a geographical or geological aspects in Greenland, you'd be able to find it. We have thousands and thousands of resources that are available. I'd already mentioned the downloadable content, and also we make sure that everything is accessible across devices. So I wonder if we do have time to briefly show you our learning environment. I'm looking at our moderator. Yeah, so I'm going to briefly stop sharing, and then after that, I've only got 2 slides left, one with the key facts and a thank you slide. So I shall do that, and I'm going to start sharing one of our courses. So now you should be able to see the main page of one of our courses. And can I please just check if that's what you can see? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So this is how all our courses look like at the moment. We are using a learning environment that is called Moodle, and I think it's really quite powerful. But whatever course you do on our program, this is when you click on the course, this is what you'll see. They're all very structured, and they're kind of obviously inside the boxes. There will be different things, but you'll feel familiar when you come in. It's like coming into I think familiarity really helps with learning, and also predictability. So whatever course you do, you will pretty much see the same content. So we always have a welcome section, and I'm just going to show you that. So this is always very brief. I always record for my own courses. I record a message, a video. You can see me, meet me for the first time. Then we have kind of general course information. We have a topic with staff contacts. All our communication forums are collected in one section. And then, so generally information topics are red or orange. General assessment information sections are purple. So on this particular course, which is the first course on the program, you have 2 assessments, which are the discussion board, contribution, and a reflection. And you'd find information in these boxes. And then in blue are always the learning weeks, and they're kind of conveniently labeled by the week of learning. And let's just have a little look here. So obviously that course has already run. So you always find a little welcome message here. And then in this course, we're actually introducing ourselves. This is like you can pop a sticky note online, essentially, with a photo of you if you want to. And I'm not going to go in because, students have shared their photos there. So for data protection reason, I'm not going to show you. And then here we have learning resources that you could click on. And then alternative presentation format. So if you wanted to print out your slides, you can find them here. If you wanted to read a transcript or just listen to a full audio of a lecture, you could find that there. And then there's always a reading list. And then we generally have a task. Now, in that particular course, we also practice some key skills because that's the first course the student starts with. So we kind of help you with learning how to reference and cite materials in your written assessments, but also in your discussion board. So that's in here. And then we kind of look about, this task is really about One Health literature and how we find it, which, you may think is trivial, but it is actually not. So that's a typical week, really. I think if I were to click on this learning resource, it might actually open up in a different window and you might not see it. No, you can see it. So let's have, no, so I'm afraid I can't show you that just now. But what we do actually have is an external facing Moodle page for which maybe our moderator can copy a link on where you can try out all these learning resources before you're even enrolled at the University of Glasgow. So if you wanted to find out more. Okay, that's our learning environment. And I'm just going to go back to my presentation to kind of wrap things up. Here we are. Okay. And we've already talked about that. So just before I finish up, just some key facts that you may want to know before you commit. So the duration of the full MSc program is between 3 and 6 years. So you can take a break, if you have caring responsibilities, or you may look after an elderly parent, or you may have a child, or you may go on maternity leave. You can interrupt your studies and no questions asked and come back. So you can take up to 6 years to complete for the full master's. Now, if you were to sign up for a certificate, which is the first year of study, I think that would be 2 years, but I'm not entirely sure. So it's proportional to the full 6 years of duration. Now, students always want to know, how much time will that take? How much time? Because, we're all busy. You may have a full-time job, you may have a family, you may have hobbies that take up a lot of time. So you want to know, and we do recommend that you kind of set aside up to 20 hours. Now, that really depends on the course, but also your background. You may find one particular week in a course is actually, you may need less time, and in other weeks you might take a bit more time. That also includes working for assessments. But I think on average, if that's something that you are able to commit to, then that's maybe a number to work with. You also have study breaks. So we teach in kind of 5-week blocks. So if we have a 10 credit course, a course will be 5 weeks long, and then you have a week off, and then you start your next course. If you have a 20 credit course, then we'll have a 5-week teaching block. You have a reading week essentially, or a catch-up week as we like to call it, and then we'll do the second half of the course. And then you have holidays, so over the Christmas holiday, for example, but also in the spring, we actually just started after a 3-week break again last week. The costs are important. Now, this you would need to look up. This is subject to change. So you may want to have a look at the most up-to-date numbers, but I think at the moment that is still correct. So about £15,000 for the full master's programme. And it's also important to know, if you, for example, working for the NHS, there's a possibility of getting a fee reduction here. And our programme starts in September, and the study mode is fully online. And that's really it. So if you would like to join us, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you for coming along today. So you can start applying for our September start anytime from now. I think on our website there is also information or a button where you can click through to the academic. That's me. So I am pretty good with replying to emails. Very rarely miss one. So if you do have a question, or you would like to have a chat with me before you commit or before you apply, please do email and reach out. I can always find time to have a chat to you. And actually, I've spoken to probably about 7 applicants in the last application cycle that wanted to have a bit more information. And yeah, that's quite fun. I get to meet new people. You get to learn a little bit more about the programme, and maybe also the people are on the programme. So yeah, do join us, and thank you for coming along. And I think that was it. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to check if there's any questions. Okay, there's not a questions, but if you were to open the chat, you can find the link for our website. So let's see if any questions come up.
Maybe would be how an average week for a student would look like in terms of would it be a mix of webinars? Is there a recommended reading list?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about a typical week of one of my courses. I can't speak for other course leaders, but certainly I can give you a bit of an idea. So we usually make the learning material available on the Saturday. The teaching week starts on Monday, but if you're a keen bean, you can have a look earlier on a Monday morning. And we are kind of following the UK time. So, if you were in Singapore, that would be a bit later for you, but I do kind of try and send out messages so that they reach you at a reasonable time on a Monday morning. And in that message, I usually is, with the title, Welcome to Week 1. And then I will tell you what the plan is, what the kind of overall intended learning outcome is for that week. And I would tell you what learning resources they are. So we would like you to maybe listen to a lecture, and then we would like you to do a certain amount of reading. So I would then point you to our reading list. So our reading list is curated such that when you click on the reading list link that I showed you earlier, it takes you to the online library, and then you can just click on the resource and it will open up. So you don't have to faff about with the internet and maybe never find the paper that we want you to read. It'll be right there for you to read. And actually, our reading list is annotated. It can be quite long and a bit daunting, but it's always annotated. This is an essential piece of a chapter that we would like to read. But actually, there are very few essential readings, really just the key points, because we don't want you just to read. We also want you to actively engage with your learning. And for that, we always offer a task. That could be maybe reading an article and then discuss it, share your key findings with the class, and that will allow you to interact with your classmates. Sometimes we also ask you, so we kind of maybe give you an example, or we would talk about a particular aspect. For example, we talk about, in one of the food security courses, we talk about nutritional deficiencies, and we ask our students to explore this in their country of origin or residence, because that can be very different, and that way we learn from each other as well. And then the cycle just continues essentially. So that's a typical week.
And given the fact that most of the students will be working, are there any opportunities for the students to interact with, network with other, maybe, conferences that they can attend and so on and so forth, since it's all
Yeah.
about, improving the career prospects?
Yes. So I think one thing that helps is kind of making connections with your classmates, because our student population, it comes from everywhere in the world, and they have lots of different kind of backgrounds. So you're making connection just by being a student. You may be meeting someone you've always wanted to meet and say, oh, this is always an area I wanted to go into. So that's one way. There are conferences. Obviously, attending a conference is not cheap. But there may be scholarships, but there's also, for example, virtual attendance that is usually very cheap. So one conference that quite a few of our previous students have attended is the World One Health Congress. There's always a virtual opportunity to meet there. You could, for example, present your dissertation paper there, and that will then open up contacts. But I think I have quite a big network of professionals that I know, former students, and I can also actually make contact and help you meet people. And many of my colleagues are probably even better connected, so that would be another way to kind of further your career. So yeah. And there's something in the chat. How would you say that doing a master's degree is different from undergraduate level? So I think we expect a lot of critical thinking of you. We train you to become critical thinkers. We train you to evaluate information. And I think that is maybe a key difference. So undergraduate students is possibly a lot more directed. So on our program, we do expect you, and we do give you guidance to do more independent study. We also, I think something that is maybe quite unique on our program, you have to make decisions. So that can be quite difficult. For example, you have to choose an assessment topic. We might tell you, you do a case study on a zoonotic disease, but we then ask you to make a decision on what that topic might be. I don't know if that answered your question, but you can always type in I'm sure there's other more complete answers, but that's what just pops into my head right now. There's the taster courses that I mentioned earlier. So if you wanted to have a look at the virtual learning environment, and I've actually recently updated ours, so you find the different types of learning resources. There's an example of each of the main types that we use, and there's also discussion forums and reading lists on there, so you can explore that on our taster courses. And all you really need to do is sign up. You need to create a login, just like you would do when you do online shopping. And it costs you nothing. Any other questions? Sorry, you're mute.
I think we are almost coming to the end of our time.
Okay. Good. So, well, if you know, I always kind of, when I go to these events, I'm always feeling a bit tongue-tied and I can't think of a question. And then immediately after I leave a session, I come up with a really pertinent question and then I regret that I didn't ask it. So if that happens to you, do email, get in touch. I will be able to answer. Well, usually I can able to answer. And if I can't, then I can ask someone else. So yeah, we are a friendly bunch. Everybody that is working with me on that program is really amazing. We are always there for our students. So, and prospective students. So do get in touch. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to come and study with us. That is because that's how I am. And that's how our colleagues are. So please do get in touch. And thank you so much for coming along today. It was a pleasure to see you. And I hope to meet some of you on the program later on. Bye.